The real estate agent locked the front door and said, "This house isn't for sale. It never was." "I don't understand," I said, but Emily was already pulling out a gun from her briefcase. The professional smile vanished from her face, replaced by cold calculation that made my stomach drop. Her manicured fingers wrapped around the grip with practiced familiarity. "Your Uncle Richard never existed, David. You were selected 3 months ago based on your physical fitness and social isolation. This house is a hunting ground for people who pay $50 million to kill carefully chosen prey." Her voice carried the clinical detachment of someone discussing weather rather than murder. I backed toward the staircase, my eyes scanning for weapons or escape routes. The Victorian house suddenly felt like a prison. Every shadow hiding potential threats I hadn't noticed during the tour. The ornate wallpaper seemed to press inward, and the antique furniture looked more like obstacles than decoration. "5 billionaires arrive at sunset," Emily continued, checking her expensive watch with practiced efficiency. "They have 6 hours to hunt you through this house using any method except firearms. Every room has weapons, but half of them are traps designed to kill you in creative ways that provide maximum entertainment value." "You're insane," I said, grabbing the fireplace poker as the nearest weapon. The iron felt heavy and reassuring in my hands, though I'd never used anything as a weapon before. "This is murder. People will look for me when I don't come home." Emily's laugh was sharp as breaking glass echoing through the empty rooms. "No one will look for you, David. You're unemployed, single, estranged from your family since your parents died. Perfect candidate for disappearing without investigation or media attention." The inheritance had seemed too good to be true when the lawyer contacted me 3 weeks ago. A house worth $500,000 from a relative I'd never met, complete with furnishings and a trust fund that would change my life forever. Now I understood why the legal documents had been processed so quickly. "How long have you been watching me?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know the answer. The thought of being studied like a laboratory specimen made my skin crawl with violation and disgust. Emily gestured toward a portrait above the fireplace, showing a stern-faced man in Victorian dress. "Richard Blackwood was a homeless veteran we used 20 years ago. He lasted 6 hours against 3 hunters before bleeding out in the basement. You should do better with your fitness background." She pulled out a tablet displaying surveillance photos I recognized from my daily routine. Images of me jogging, grocery shopping, leaving my apartment, completely unaware that predators were documenting my habits and vulnerabilities with scientific precision. "The hunters arrive in 4 hours, Emily said, consulting her watch again. "Theodore Ashworth specifically requested you after seeing your profile. Apparently you cost him his business empire and personal fortune through some environmental whistleblowing 3 years ago." The name hit me like ice water flooding my veins. Theodore Ashworth, CEO of Ashworth Industries, the man whose toxic waste dumping I'd exposed to federal authorities. My testimony had resulted in criminal charges, bankruptcy, and prison time that had destroyed his life as thoroughly as his chemicals had poisoned groundwater. "He's been planning this revenge for 3 years, Emily continued with professional satisfaction, "waiting for the perfect opportunity to eliminate you in a way that would provide personal satisfaction while maintaining complete deniability through our organization." I lunged toward the front door, testing locks that were indeed beyond my ability to break. The windows were barred with decorative iron that looked elegant but functioned as prison architecture. Every exit was secured with systems designed to contain rather than welcome. "David, running around frantically will only exhaust you before the real challenge begins," Emily said with infuriating calm. "Let me explain the rules, so you have some chance of surviving until dawn. The house has weapons hidden throughout, but most are traps that kill anyone foolish enough to use them." She led me through rooms that served dual purposes I was only now beginning to understand. The library contained hidden passages that led to dead ends filled with poison gas. The kitchen offered knives and tools, but half were electrified to kill anyone who touched them without proper knowledge. "How many people have died here?" I asked, though I dreaded hearing numbers that would make this house a monument to systematic murder rather than architectural beauty. 43 over 20 years, Emily replied without emotion or regret. "The current survival record is 18 hours, set by a former Special Forces operative who ultimately died from blood loss after amputating his own leg to escape a bear trap in the master bedroom. The upstairs bedrooms contained elaborate death traps disguised as furniture and decoration, beds that collapsed into spike pits when weight was applied, wardrobes that released toxic gas when opened, bathroom mirrors concealing two-way glass where observers could watch victims' final desperate moments. There's something else you need to understand," Emily said as we returned to the main floor. "This isn't random selection for entertainment. Theodore Ashworth paid extra for exclusive hunting rights, which means the other 4 participants are here to support his personal revenge rather than compete against him. The revelation made everything worse by removing any hope that competing interests might create opportunities for escape or rescue. 5 wealthy killers working together to eliminate one specific target represented overwhelming odds that would require miraculous luck to overcome." Emily showed me another photo on her tablet displaying 4 additional faces I didn't recognize, but who looked like successful businessmen rather than obvious murderers. Corporate executives, defense contractors, pharmaceutical CEOs. all people whose industries were damaged by environmental regulations you supported through your testimony and advocacy work. My whistleblowing had apparently created more enemies than I'd realized. Powerful people who viewed my environmental activism as personal attacks on their profit margins worth responding to with lethal force, disguised as entertainment. The basement contains monitoring equipment that broadcasts live video to paying subscribers worldwide, Emily continued, leading me down narrow stairs that creaked ominously under our weight. Premium dark web entertainment for people who pay thousands of dollars to watch real murder in high definition. The basement was filled with cameras, computers, and broadcasting equipment that looked more sophisticated than most television studios. Multiple screens showed different angles of the house interior, creating comprehensive surveillance that would document every moment of the coming hunt. Subscribers place bets on survival time, cause of death, which hunter makes the kill, Emily explained while checking camera angles and audio levels. Tonight's event has already generated over $10 million in subscription fees and gambling revenue from international audiences. The scope of the operation was staggering and nauseating. My murder wasn't just personal revenge for Theodore Ashworth, it was commercial entertainment for global audiences who paid premium prices to watch real human suffering and death. How long have you been running this operation? I asked, though I was also looking for weapons or tools that might help me survive the next 6 hours. 20 years across multiple locations worldwide, Emily replied with pride rather than shame. We've perfected the balance between challenging the prey and satisfying our clients' entertainment preferences while maintaining complete operational security. She showed me financial records displaying millions of dollars in revenue from hunting operations, subscription services, and gambling platforms. This wasn't amateur sadism, but professional murder organized with corporate efficiency and international scope. The hunters used traditional weapons only, Emily continued, opening cases containing crossbows, knives, swords, and various medieval implements designed for killing humans in prolonged and painful ways. No firearms, explosives, or modern technology that would end the entertainment too quickly. Each weapon was crafted for maximum suffering rather than efficient killing. Crossbow bolts designed to wound rather than kill immediately. Bladed weapons that would cause blood loss over hours rather than minutes. Tools of torture disguised as hunting equipment. Your best strategy is to avoid direct confrontation while using the house's passages and hidden rooms to stay ahead of the search pattern, Emily advised, with the tone of someone genuinely trying to help. The hunters are wealthy amateurs rather than professional killers, but they have unlimited time and overwhelming numbers. I found a backpack and began filling it with bottled water and energy bars from the kitchen, preparing for a siege that might last through the night if I could avoid capture or death long enough. My rock climbing experience had taught me about rationing resources during extended physical challenges. There are weapons that actually function throughout the house, Emily said, consulting a tablet that apparently contained maps and equipment locations. But they're hidden among traps designed to kill anyone who makes wrong choices about what to grab during desperate moments. She showed me a floor plan marking safe weapons with green dots and lethal traps with red marks. The pattern revealed that survival required memorizing complex information while under extreme stress, testing both physical and mental capabilities under life-threatening pressure. You have 2 hours before they arrive, Emily announced, checking her watch one final time. Use the time wisely to familiarize yourself with escape routes and hiding places. Remember that your objective is survival, not heroism or revenge against people who have every advantage. I spent those 2 hours exploring the house with new understanding of its deadly architecture. Every room contained multiple purposes, serving both normal residential function and elaborate murder entertainment. Beauty and horror integrated with architectural precision that took decades to perfect. The library's hidden passages led to rooms filled with previous victims' belongings, clothes, identification, personal items from 43 people who had died for the entertainment of wealthy killers over 2 decades. Each collection represented someone's final desperate hours in this house of systematic murder. Among the personal effects, I found items that suggested some victims had managed to wound or kill their hunters before ultimately dying themselves. Blood-stained weapons, torn expensive clothing, evidence of fights that hadn't been completely one-sided despite overwhelming odds against survival. The discovery gave me hope that resistance was possible even against professional hunters with superior equipment and unlimited resources. Previous victims had proven that wealthy killers weren't invulnerable, that desperation and determination could sometimes overcome money and sociopathic planning. As sunset approached, I positioned myself in the attic space above the 3rd floor, watching through small windows as vehicles arrived in the circular driveway. 5 black SUVs containing hunting parties who had traveled here specifically to kill me for entertainment and revenge. Theodore Ashworth emerged from the lead vehicle wearing expensive hunting gear that looked more like military equipment than sporting goods. His 4 companions were similarly dressed and armed with weapons that belonged on medieval battlefields rather than modern hunting expeditions. They moved with confidence born of experience and unlimited resources, discussing strategy and equipment, while Emily greeted them like valued customers rather than murderers. The casual nature of their preparation made the coming violence feel surreal and terrifying. "David Blake!" Theodore called toward the house, his voice carrying clearly through the evening air. "I know you're listening. We're going to give you 1 hour head start before beginning the hunt. Use the time to prepare yourself for justice that's 20 years overdue." The hour that followed was the longest of my life, spent checking and rechecking escape routes while listening to the hunters coordinate their strategy through radios and tactical equipment. They discussed my background, capabilities, and likely hiding places with professional thoroughness. From my attic position, I could see them dividing into teams that would cover different sections of the house systematically. Theodore would lead the primary search while his companions covered escape routes and potential hiding places. Their coordination suggested previous experience hunting humans in similar environments. At exactly 9 p.m., the front door opened, and the hunt began with Theodore's voice echoing through empty rooms. "David, your environmental activism cost 5 companies billions of dollars and thousands of jobs. Tonight, you pay for that economic damage with entertainment that serves a higher purpose." I moved through the attic spaces, using passages that Emily had shown me, staying ahead of search teams that were clearing rooms with military precision. Their radios crackled with position reports and tactical coordination that made survival feel increasingly impossible. The first close call came 30 minutes into the hunt when one of Theodore's companions discovered the attic access in the master bedroom. I had perhaps 10 seconds to reach the next passage before being trapped in a dead end with nowhere to run. I squeezed through a gap between walls that led to the space above the kitchen, listening to frustrated voices below as the hunters realized their prey had escaped immediate capture. Their conversation revealed growing anger at being outmaneuvered by someone they'd expected to capture easily. "He's using the passages like a fucking rat in a maze," Theodore snarled into his radio. "Switch to smoke grenades and flush him out of the walls. I want him in the open where we can take our time with proper weapons." Smoke began filling the passage spaces, forcing me to abandon concealment and move into the main house where the hunters could see and pursue me directly. The game of hide-and-seek was over. Now it became a running battle through rooms designed for murder. The library became a battlefield when I grabbed what I hoped was a functional sword from a wall display. The blade was real and sharp, but wielding it against crossbow-equipped hunters required getting close enough to die from their ranged weapons. Theodore's first crossbow bolt missed my head by inches, embedding in a bookshelf with enough force to penetrate completely through leather-bound volumes. His reload time gave me opportunity to reach the hidden passage behind the fireplace, but his companions were coordinating to cut off escape routes. "David, you're only delaying the inevitable," Theodore called as I reached the second floor. "We have all night and unlimited patience. Every minute you run just makes your eventual death more satisfying for everyone watching at home." The monitoring equipment Emily had shown me was broadcasting live video to paying audiences worldwide. Thousands of people were watching my desperate flight through rooms designed for their entertainment, placing bets on how long I would survive. I found Emily in the basement communication center, monitoring camera feeds and coordinating with subscribers who were providing tactical advice to the hunters through encrypted channels. She looked up as I appeared, reaching for a weapon that might have been intended for self-defense or eliminating inconvenient witnesses. "David, you're supposed to be upstairs providing entertainment for our clients," she said with professional irritation rather than fear. "The longer you survive, the more revenue we generate. But hiding in the basement defeats the purpose of the exercise." "How much are they paying you to orchestrate my murder?" I asked, while looking for weapons or tools that might help me survive the rest of the night. "Theodore Ashworth paid $50 million for exclusive hunting rights," Emily replied with satisfaction. "The other participants paid $20 million each for supporting roles. Broadcasting revenue and gambling profits add another $30 million to total event value. $170 million for the privilege of hunting one environmental activist whose testimony had cost them money and regulatory inconvenience." The scope of their investment revealed how seriously wealthy people took threats to their interests and how far they would go for revenge. "There are other events scheduled worldwide," Emily continued, showing me a calendar displaying future hunts in different countries. Politicians who support environmental regulations, prosecutors who investigate corporate crime, journalists who expose corruption, market solutions to social problems. I grabbed a fire axe from the wall, testing its weight and balance, while Emily reached for what appeared to be a panic button that would alert the hunters to my basement location. The axe felt solid and deadly, capable of inflicting serious damage if I could get close enough to use it. "Emily, how many innocent people have you killed for money?" I asked while moving closer to striking range. "None," she replied with genuine conviction. "Every victim was carefully selected based on their potential to cause economic disruption or social instability. We eliminate problems before they become unmanageable threats to civilization." The rationalization was sophisticated propaganda designed to justify systematic murder as social service. Emily genuinely believed she was protecting society by killing people who challenged corporate interests or wealthy individuals' profit margins. The axe caught her in the center of the chest, ending her participation in the hunting business permanently. But her death also triggered alarms that alerted Theodore's team to my basement location, eliminating my temporary sanctuary and forcing me back into the main house. "David killed Emily," Theodore announced to his companions through radio communications. No more games, no more entertainment value. Hunt to kill immediately and prepare for extraction. This has become personal business rather than recreational activity. The house erupted in violence as the remaining 4 hunters abandoned sporting pretense and began systematic room-to-room clearance designed to locate and eliminate me quickly. Smoke grenades filled corridors while crossbow bolts sparked off walls and furniture around my position. I reached the kitchen and grabbed knives that I hoped were functional rather than electrified traps, testing each blade carefully before trusting my life to weapons that might kill me instead of my pursuers. The fire axe remained my primary weapon, but backup options were essential. Theodore appeared in the kitchen doorway, reloading his crossbow while blocking my escape route to the dining room. David, you've caused enough trouble for one lifetime. Time to pay for decades of environmental activism that cost hardworking people their jobs and economic security. You poisoned groundwater that gave children cancer, I replied, while calculating distances and angles for axe throwing that might disable him before he could shoot. Your hardworking people were dying from toxic exposure you covered up for profit. Acceptable casualties in economic development that provided jobs and prosperity for thousands of families, Theodore responded without guilt or regret. Sometimes progress requires sacrifices that idealistic environmentalists are too naive to understand or accept. His crossbow bolt caught me in the left shoulder, spinning me around but not disabling my axe arm. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, but adrenaline kept me functional, while Theodore reloaded for what would probably be a fatal shot to center mass. I threw the axe with everything I had left, watching it rotate through the air toward Theodore's chest. The blade caught him just below the sternum, driving deep enough to puncture vital organs and drop him to the kitchen floor in a spreading pool of blood. That's for the cancer victims you murdered for profit, I said, while retrieving the axe and searching Theodore's body for useful equipment or weapons. 3 hunters remained, but their leader was dead, and their coordination was breaking down into individual revenge rather than tactical cooperation. I could hear them arguing through radio communications about extraction procedures and evidence elimination. The dining room became my next battleground, when 2 hunters tried to coordinate crossfire that would eliminate any possibility of escape or resistance. But the room's heavy furniture provided cover while I moved closer to effective axe range, using their overconfidence against superior numbers. The first hunter died when I buried the axe in his skull while he was reloading his crossbow. The second managed to wound me with a bolt to the right thigh before I reached him with knives taken from the kitchen, opening his throat in a spray of arterial blood. 1 hunter remained, but he was calling for extraction and evidence elimination rather than continuing pursuit of prey that had already killed his team leader and companions. Through radio communications, I could hear vehicles approaching the house with reinforcements or cleanup crews. I found the last hunter in the basement communication center, systematically destroying equipment and files that connected the hunting operation to paying clients and international subscribers. He looked up as I appeared, raising his hands in surrender rather than reaching for weapons. David, this is over, he said, while continuing to delete files from computer systems. Theodore Ashworth is dead, the event is concluded, and extraction teams are arriving to clean up evidence and witnesses. You won tonight, but the victory comes with permanent target status. What do you mean permanent target status? I asked while keeping the axe ready for use. The hunting network extends worldwide with hundreds of wealthy participants who view tonight's casualties as business expenses rather than personal losses. You've proven dangerous enough to require professional elimination rather than entertainment hunting. The implications were terrifying, but not surprising. Surviving one hunting operation would only mark me for more sophisticated elimination by people with unlimited resources and international connections. Victory tonight was just the beginning of a war I couldn't win through conventional means. How many other innocent people are scheduled for hunting? I asked, while searching through files that hadn't been deleted yet. Dozens across 6 countries over the next 12 months, he replied, while continuing systematic evidence destruction. Politicians, prosecutors, journalists, environmental activists, anyone who poses threats to corporate interests or wealthy individuals' profit margins. I could hear vehicles surrounding the house and tactical teams preparing to enter through multiple access points. But these weren't law enforcement officers responding to reports of violence. They were cleanup crews sent to eliminate witnesses and evidence. David, you have 2 choices, the remaining hunter said while raising his hands higher. Surrender to extraction teams who will eliminate you professionally and painlessly, or run and spend the rest of your life being hunted by people with unlimited resources and patience. I chose a third option by using the fire axe to destroy communication equipment while keeping files that documented future hunting operations and identified potential victims. Evidence that could save lives if delivered to legitimate law enforcement agencies that weren't corrupted by hunting network connections. The hunter tried to stop me from copying files onto portable drives, but the axe blade across his chest ended his participation in evidence destruction. I was alone in the basement with computer systems that contained enough information to expose hunting operations worldwide. But time was running out as extraction teams breached the main house and began systematic clearing of rooms that would eventually lead them to the basement communication center. I had minutes to copy critical files before being trapped with nowhere to run. The files I managed to save contained names, locations, financial records, and communication logs that documented hunting operations across multiple continents. Evidence of systematic murder disguised as entertainment, with victims numbering in the thousands rather than dozens. But more importantly, the files contained lists of future victims, with names and photographs of people scheduled for elimination over the next year. Environmental activists, corporate whistleblowers, investigative journalists, prosecutors who specialized in white-collar crime, anyone who posed threats to wealthy interests. I escaped through drainage tunnels that connected the house basement to municipal water systems, carrying evidence that could save hundreds of lives if delivered to federal agents who weren't corrupted by hunting network connections. The files were more valuable than my survival. The tunnels led to a storm drain outlet 2 miles from the hunting house, where I emerged covered in filth but alive and carrying evidence of international conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of corporate and political power. But as I reached the surface, black SUVs were already positioned around the drainage outlet, indicating that extraction teams had anticipated this escape route and prepared accordingly. I was surrounded by people with military equipment and orders to eliminate witnesses. That's when FBI tactical teams arrived in armored vehicles that immediately engaged the extraction teams in a firefight that turned the drainage area into a battlefield. Federal agents had apparently been monitoring the hunting operation as part of a larger investigation into wealthy criminal networks. Special Agent Diana Foster emerged from the federal tactical vehicle and approached my position while her team secured the area and arrested surviving extraction team members. David Blake, FBI. We've been tracking the hunting network for 18 months, waiting for an opportunity to gather evidence and arrest participants. You used me as bait, I said, while handing over the evidence files I'd recovered from the basement communication center. We used the hunting operation as a trap to capture network leaders and gather evidence that will result in prosecutions across multiple countries, Agent Foster replied while examining the files. Your survival was always the primary objective, but gathering evidence was equally important. The investigation that followed revealed hunting operations in 12 countries, with victims numbering in the thousands over 2 decades. Wealthy individuals from multiple industries had been paying for systematic elimination of people who posed threats to their interests, using entertainment as psychological cover. I testified before congressional committees and international criminal courts for over a year, providing evidence that resulted in hundreds of arrests and the exposure of corporate conspiracy that reached into government agencies and judicial systems worldwide. The compensation provided by federal victim assistance programs allowed me to relocate and establish a new identity, but couldn't erase memories of being hunted through a house designed for murder by people whose wealth made them believe they were above moral and legal constraints. But 6 months later, I received a package containing photographs of Theodore Ashworth's business associates dying in what appeared to be hunting scenarios similar to what I'd experienced. The note attached read, "Some prey becomes predator. Justice has many forms." The network I'd helped expose was being systematically eliminated by people who specialized in hunting the hunters, using their own methods against them in what appeared to be carefully planned revenge operations conducted by survivors of previous hunting events. I never learned who was conducting the counter-hunting operations, but news reports over the following year documented the mysterious deaths of dozens of wealthy individuals who had been connected to hunting networks worldwide, all killed in ways that suggested intimate knowledge of their methods and psychology.